Hello everyone, welcome to week 2 of The Artist Way. While I share my week 2 doing The Artist Way, I also want to show you guys my progress working on this circle piece. I'm not going to be finished it by the end of this video, but I will definitely be sharing the finished result on my Instagram. Week 2 starts out with Julia Cameron talking about external barriers and internal barriers that prevent you from living more creatively. She starts off the external barriers with talking about poisonous playmates. I remember when I first started out and I would have these exciting wins where I would sell a piece or get into a show or hit like a social media milestone or have a video go viral, and I would tell someone that I loved about it, a friend or whatever, and they would respond in a way that would be very either negative or just like extreme indifference. And coming up against that energy was confusing really at first, and then it was hurtful. And I very quickly learned who I could really share these wins with and who I could really not share these wins with. And there were certain situations where I got the vibe that if I had continued to share these wins with them and shared my success, that they would start to resent me even. It's an odd energy to come up against, and I had never experienced that from these people before pursuing art, but I got used to it, and I think I just learned like there's certain people who have the emotional space to share wins with you, and then there's other people who just don't have that space, and that's okay, right? And that did make me question, like, do I want to keep these people in my life? Is this a friendship that makes sense for me? I had a moment in the beginning of my artist journey where I was having trouble like sharing joy with someone about a situation that I had struggled with in the past or was currently struggling in. And it was in that moment that I really realized that like sometimes because of what you're going through or what you've been through, it's hard for you to kind of step out of yourself and to be present with this other person. And that's something for me to unpack. I do agree with Julia Cameron that you have to be careful relatively with poisonous playmates, right? You have to be careful with people who just are not able to show up for you in the way that you want them to when it comes to your creative life. The second part of the external barriers that you may face when you're trying to pursue a creative life is crazy makers. So in addition to poisonous playmates, I've had a few crazy makers. I've done quite a lot of work to unpack that, like, because at first these crazy makers don't seem like crazy makers, right? You just feel like all of a sudden you're in this drama, or all of a sudden your life just starts feeling very chaotic. And it takes a period of time for you to realize that this person is kind of the root of those moments, and that every time they kind of pop up or show up, your life starts going off the rails. When I first decided to become full-time, I was very insecure about how to be a full-time artist. Didn't know what that looked like, and I felt like I needed to reach out beyond myself and get advice. And so I was receiving a lot of advice and being told what to do and what not to do, and some of it aligned, right? Some of it was great and like it was wonderful advice that I think propelled me, but then there was other advice that I just swallowed even though it did not resonate. Certain advice that went against the way I had been doing things for years, or goals that I had planned to do when I finally became full-time that I suddenly threw out the window because that wasn't how you were supposed to do it. What I learned, and what Julia Cameron is also teaching, is to set those boundaries, and to set those boundaries early. You know, when you notice that someone is not able to show up for you in the way that you need them to or want them to, you need to set a boundary, right? And if every time you're hanging out with certain someone, you feel like your life is going off the rails, you need to set boundaries, right? In that specific situation that I experienced in the past with my crazy maker, I felt like I should have set those boundaries up front early on, and I know that I didn't set those boundaries because of my insecurity, because I felt like, oh, I can't trust myself, I don't know this space, I don't know what I'm doing, and I allowed someone else to kind of like lead the way. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to like sleep with my decisions at night, right? I'm the one who has to pay my bills. One of the great misconceptions about the artistic life is that it entails great swaths of aimlessness. The truth is that a creative life involves great swaths of attention. Attention is the way to connect and survive. Think of an artist's life, you think of a very bohemian life. I think you think of a life full of freedom and controlling everything about your schedule and aimlessness. But in reality, your time can be easily eaten up by the smallest things, and you can find yourself constantly chasing the clock and constantly trying to make up lost time because you spent your time doing something that isn't really gonna meet your bottom line. This is an area that I really struggle with, is setting these priorities and really making sure that I'm staying focused on the goal and focused on what matters to me, and organizing my time in a way that supports my priorities. Sometimes I find myself getting these really cool ideas and then chasing that. I need to just get very clear on my goals, set a timeline that I allow myself to just focus on those goals, and then head down, barriers up, laser focused on those goals, right? And they don't just have to be work goals. One thing that I feel like Julia Cameron really talks about a lot is to make sure that these goals and your priorities are covering your whole life. It's very easy as an artist to only focus on art and to lose other parts of yourself along the way. I think there's a quote that goes something like, if you want to make expressive work and express yourself through your art, you need to have a self to express. From a spiritual perspective, it's very important to remember that the artist, right, my artist life is just one part of me, right? There is the real me, the me that is everything and everyone that is a part of the universe, and then there's these shells or skins or masks that we kind of put on and we go about the world. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, I'm really into the whole theory about a Leela, or that life is a play, and I think my role in this life is to live an artist's life and to act as an artist during my time on earth. But I do feel like it's important to remember that I'm also really into cooking, and I'm also someone who likes to explore and go to different cities, who likes to explore the city, who likes to hang out with friends. If you'd like to do your own version of week 2, I'd recommend that you think about where your time goes and how you spend your time during the week. You can list out your top priorities and what you think your top priorities are on an average basis. I would also recommend that maybe you take some time and think about who the crazy makers may be in your life, and if you have any poisonous playmates. And I'm not saying that you need to cut anyone out. I think sometimes we can be a little quick to cut people out, but I am saying that maybe it's time to set some boundaries with other people in your life. I'll see you in week 3. I'll be sharing a little bit about my time in Baltimore at the Artscape Art Market, and just about how I went about week 3 of Julia Cameron's Artist Way.